Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. So today I have an incredibly special what if to present to you all. I know I've been covering the SkyWings quite a bit lately, but this is a story I absolutely needed to tell, and I'm super glad I get the chance to. A big thanks to 𝙈𝙤𝙬𝙍𝙬 the Medicine Cat for presenting this idea to me. In the guidebook, we got it revealed to us that Queen Firestorm of the SkyWings, Scarlet's mother, sent away her own youngest daughter to the furthermost outpost of the kingdom due to her not being pretty enough. Well, 𝙈𝙤𝙬𝙍𝙬 the Medicine Cat had a great idea. What if that led to the secret survival of this sister? So here in this video, I've crafted the tale of the forgotten SkyWing princess, and how her exile ultimately led to her eventual future. Thank you so much to 𝙂𝙀𝙁𝙀 for creating the art for this video. I'm just stunned by the visuals here, and they truly brought 𝙈𝙤𝙬𝙍𝙬 to life. I really appreciate you making this. But before we begin, a huge shout out to my patrons. 𝙈𝙤𝙀𝙀, Slightest Wild, Thistle, Noobto, Pyronuke, Avril, and Pancake. Thank you all so much for supporting me. Links to their social medias are in the description down below. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into the video. I remember exactly when Mother abandoned me. It was on the day of my 3rd birthday, so how could I forget? In truth, it was foolish of me to believe any of this could have gone differently. And yet, I did the one thing a princess in this family never should. I dreamed. I have been left only to sit here in my faraway bedchambers, writing to a soul that does not exist. It has been my only way of passing the hours, ones that eventually turn to days, then months, then years. And now, decades, I'm sure of it. Sometimes Valley lets me unclip my wings and soar off into the heavens above, to feel the wind whip at my cracked scales once again. But those times are few and far between. I believe that royal servant who has been with me for the majority of my stay in this lonesome tower was only brought here at Father's command, as I surely cannot ever envision Firestorm thinking that far into her plans of exile for me. On nights like these, I look up at the stars and wonder what a different destiny would have been like for me. 𝙈𝙤𝙬𝙍𝙬 to the SkyWing, simply allowed in the palace for the way she is. No, that's too impossible knowing Mother and my sisters. But all I'm allowed to do in here is dream, so that I must. It is all I have left of the life I lost. I'm often left to think about that night of my departure from home, how quick words from Firestorm's tongue led to my eternity in this empty spire. With how many times I have reminisced, the details are iron sharp in my mind. I remember everything with clarity, though I doubt any others do. Do the guards even remember I exist? Is Scarlet the queen now like she always told us all she would be? Surely Mother is dead, and many of my sisters along with her. I have so many questions, but Valley knows none of the answers. Even in my dreams tonight, that 3rd birthday will torment my very being in bones. As I set down this quill, I want to thank you for reading, if these words ever do grace a dragon's eyes. Maybe you will remember me. The dragon who lived, but at a cost. Maroon claws dangled over the edge of a palace balcony. Princess 𝙈𝙤𝙬𝙍𝙬 sighed so gently that the sound of it was lost in the lapping wind, becoming as invisible as the dragon who made the breath. The morning air was warm, yet brimming with the same unease as the young SkyWing princess. For any other dragonette, a hatching day was something to celebrate. It meant one's family and friends would be gathered around her, sharing stories of their days together and thinking of their future. And yet, 𝙈𝙤𝙬𝙍𝙬 was left alone, only to watch falcons and kestrels circle the distant peaks. Every part of her wished to leap from the very balcony she stood on and join them in the open sky, but that was no activity for a princess. Firestorm surely would have yelled at her for the way it tied her jewelry in knots, or the fat raindrops from above would smudge her fresh makeup. 𝙈𝙤𝙬𝙍𝙬 gave a final longing stare at the morning drizzle of rain before turning her back to the world and re-entering her chambers. The young SkyWing made her way over to the one spot she was most familiar, her mirror. Firestorm had adorned its edges with gold and silver from the distant kingdoms before Amethyst had even hatched. She expected it to be somewhere her daughter would always be, as perfection was possible in the eyes of the queen. Amethyst carefully slid golden bracelets onto each of her arms, shifting uneasily at their immediate coldness. The princess stared back at the dragon, who blinked at her with curious yet tired eyes. She barely recognized her own body with the pounds of jewelry draping from her, and a studded trim ingrained into her very horns. Amethyst only wished all of this was as easy for her as it was for her sisters. Scarlet was Mother's favorite, and flaunted the fact around every inch of the palace. During the few times the girl princess would enter near Amethyst's bed, she would merely mock her own sister and brag about the jewelry she had stolen from visiting ambassadors or important SkyWings. After complaining about the supposed dullness of Amethyst's room, she would leave, thoughts swirling into new realities immediately. Outside of times like those, the youngest princess hardly ever saw Scarlet or any of her other sisters. Cherry would endlessly bicker at the dinner table until she received harsh enough words from Firestorm to shut her up. Solstice spent all her time bragging about the different dragons that wished to wed her and what she would get from each arrangement if she were to accept. For Amethyst, the palace was no place of grand serenity. It was a home of nightmares, yet brimming with the untouched potential to house dreams. The young SkyWing knew she would never be the queen of her tribe, but with the options of her sisters for the throne, it seemed impossible for the mountains to be ruled by kind claws for so many more generations. Amethyst finished adjusting her smoothened tiara. Its edges were embedded with talon prints from every time Firestorm scolded her for it. No matter how much the princess tried, it was never straight enough to catch the light of the windows or high enough on her head to truly shine, according to her mother at least. "Amethyst," a voice said from behind the bedchamber door, breaking the indefinite silence. "The queen is calling for you and your sisters in the throne room." The maroon SkyWing flinched instinctively. If it was a matter for all three of them to hear her ramblings about, Firestorm was clearly worked up enough as it was. Amethyst swallowed dryly. "I'll be down as soon as possible." The princess finished polishing the purple gems beneath her eyes and gave one final glance at the mirror's unforgiving face before heading out of her room. "Whatever is concerning Mother, I hope it's something I get out of soon. I was hoping for even just a second beneath the clouds. It's all I could ever want for my hatching day. An afternoon of soaring across the castle's wind paths and feeling as free as any SkyWing should is a greater gift than the material wealth I see around me each day. I wish all of us thought that way. Maybe things would be different. Maybe dragons could be who they were and didn't feel like they had to change themselves for the approval of others. Despite being the youngest in this family, I feel imbued with more wisdom and peace than any of the other royalty. It's strange, and a small part of me wishes I was like them. Maybe then all of this would be easier." Amethyst scratched at her clamped bracelets, scales crawling at the way they dug into her body. They were unnatural, alien even. The young princess sought beauty elsewhere. Without warning, however, a flash of orange shot into Amethyst's view. Before she could make out the dragon in front of her, she had already tripped face first into the cold stone floor. "3 moons! I'm so sorry!" a voice shrieked from above her. Amethyst's eyelids opened, gaze darting wildly as the world came back into view. Upon noting Amethyst's crown, the dragon in front of her gasped. "The princess! Oh dear, the queen is going to kill me for messing up your face." The dragon grimaced, straightening her own glasses. Amethyst only laughed. She sat up slowly, taking in the dragon in front of her. She appeared only slightly older, and her face wore a sense of youth the princess rarely saw in the palace. The dragon's scales were tangerine, and her body small. Thin-rimmed glasses sat on her snout, perfectly straight. "It's okay," Amethyst said truthfully. "Maybe with how much of a mood she's in right now, she won't notice I'm a little late. Dust isn't too much to deal with in the bathroom." The dragon smiled shyly before extending a claw out for Amethyst to take. She lifted the young SkyWing up gently, almost as though her body were made of glass. She was touched with care unfamiliar to Amethyst, and she quite liked it. "Well, I shouldn't be holding you," the dragon quickly said. "If she's furious, tell her it's all Ibex's fault." "Ibex?" Amethyst asked. "I've never heard of you before, or seen you around the palace." The dragon nodded, blinking her bright green eyes. "My mom was definitely right about not bringing me up here. In my first 2 seconds, I already screwed something up. She's super nice, and now I see why she wanted to protect me from, everything. I've already heard 3 cooks scream at dragons who are taking too long to pass by the kitchens. And no offense to your mom, but she's definitely totally scary. At least from the stories I've heard. I'm actually training to become the palace librarian, just like my mother. I know Queen Firestorm doesn't care that much about scrolls, but maybe there will be a leader someday here who does. And this knowledge needs preserving somehow." Amethyst only laughed in agreement. "No, I think scary is the perfect adjective to describe my mom with. I'm sure she means well with all she says to us, seeing as we are her daughters, but I don't know. Having a mother that rules hundreds of dragons is kind of daunting. She has to know better than I do, surely." Ibex clicked her tongue, eyeing every inch of the princess in her layers of jewelry and caked makeup. "Let's hope she does know better than us. I mean, our kingdom does depend on it after all." The orange dragon smiled, something that sent a wave of warmth across Amethyst's scales. Ibex continued. "I'm still sorry for getting in your way, and holding you here. I was just on my way to the library after a bit of exploration of the corridors. A good storykeeper must know every inch of the palace she's soon going to be in forever. The path goes across the castle grounds, and it's perfect to fly through." Ibex caught Amethyst's unconscious glances to the large stained glass windows that led to the rooftops. She stepped forward to nudge the princess's maroon shoulder. "You can come with me if you want. I mean, only if you think your mom would be okay with it, of course." Amethyst hesitated before smiling softly. "Well, I am a bit of an invisible princess. I don't think Mother would care too much if I flew with you on royal business." Ibex laughed, the sound sweet like honey. "Oh, totally. It's royal business, after all. And I'm just a poor SkyWing librarian trainee that needs guidance. Is there a princess who can perhaps guide me to my destination?" Both girls were giggling by the time they made it to an opening. "Just a few minutes, though," Amethyst said. "Of course." A flurry of small wings met the morning rain. Ibex and Amethyst almost seemed to dance across the sky, their bodies light with the energy they shared. Pyria seemed so small from up here in the mountains. They could see dozens of dragons tending to their rooftop gardens or teaching their young to fly. Royal messengers soared through the thin line of trees, carrying stories of their own. Ibex pointed to every animal she saw on the cliff tops, and Amethyst beamed. After it felt like an eternity to the pair, they finally reached the ledge that led into the Royal Library's opening. Ibex waved to Amethyst as she landed. "Thank you for accompanying me and showing me the way, your Royal Highness," Ibex said with a mock salute. Amethyst shook her head with a huge smile. "Don't mention it. I hope things go well with your training. Out of every SkyWing, I have the feeling you deserve to be in this palace the most." Ibex ran over to give Amethyst a hug with closed eyes, burying her small head into the princess's neck. "I hope things go well with your mom, and maybe I'll see you around?" "Yeah," Amethyst said. "Of course." She watched as the dragonette entered into the library, and a spark lit up within the princess. Maybe there's hope for dragons like me after all. Amethyst slipped through the crowd of gathering servants and swordsmen. Whatever had her mother so angry must be more serious than she thought. After a while, the princess finally made her way through the groups of gossiping dragons, and slid open the door to the throne room. Firestorm was fuming, smoke billowing out of her nose in wild puffs. She failed to hear the creaking of Amethyst's entrance. Her focus was on a newly bloodied SkyWing soldier. "You allowed a Sandwing to sneak into the treasury?" Firestorm yelled, hitting her tail against the stone floor wildly. I apologize, my queen, the dragon stammered. The scorpion's den lot are slippery, but that is no excuse for my... He paused at the growl rising from Firestorm's throat, and snapped his snout shut immediately. Amethyst quietly and unsurely stepped toward her sisters, the three of which were staring at her with their mouths agape. After her initial wave of shock, Scarlet merely cackled at the youngest princess deliriously. I was almost going to think, what's wrong with her? But honestly, what isn't? Amethyst thought to herself snappily. At the end of Scarlet's laughter, Firestorm finally turned her head to face the daughters. Oh, look who finally decided to show up, Firestorm began. Suddenly, her gaze landed on Amethyst with alarm, and then disgust. What on Pyria is wrong with you? She shouted. I'm so sorry, Mother. I had to guide someone around the palace and... She's not talking about that, Scarlet said, still laughing. She's talking about your face. It's hideous. And, well, everything else, really. Almost as though on cue, Amethyst felt a droplet slide down her face. She reached a talon to feel what it was, only to realize in horror that her makeup had completely smudged everywhere from the wind and rain. I was out with Ibex, and I didn't even think about it, she thought wildly. Amethyst looked down at her jewelry, seeing in horror that it was twisted and soaked. Firestorm looked horrified, while the princess's sisters only laughed. I don't even want to be in the presence of such horridness, Firestorm snapped. Get away from this family. You have stained the image of all of us with your grotesqueness. I demand that you remain in the furthest outpost tower. Tell all the guards there they can leave, and that you will be taking their place as long as I choose. But Mother, immediately! By now, stained raindrops were not the only things cascading down Amethyst's face. She began to cry, something Scarlet, Cherwhite, and Solstice found incredibly amusing and gross. Firestorm turned away from her daughters, going back to berating the SkyWing guard who failed. It seemed as though she'd forgotten her already. Maybe she truly had. Amethyst shot out from a nearby window, carrying nothing with her at her mother's command. All she could do was fly, despite the sky no longer meaning the same. Amethyst sat down her quill, staring off into the endless sea of stars above. It was one of the few luxuries she was given in this space. Its view of the heavens was greater than her hole in the palace. Upon rereading the journal entry she had written, the old princess wondered if maybe Ibex would someday see it. She wondered if that happy orange dragonet ended up doing well in the castle. Amethyst would have done anything to make sure she was behind that librarian's desk, happily listing off new additions to the collection. If she was still alive through the terrible rain that must have come, that is. In truth, the Skying Princess wondered if that dragonet even remembered her at all, or if anyone could. Without warning, however, a knock fell upon the spire door. Amethyst furrowed her brow before calling out, Valley, you know you may come inside. Silence met her comment, filling Amethyst with unease, yet also curiosity. Suddenly, a voice sounded behind its wooden layers. Is this Princess Amethyst of the SkyWings? It was a new voice, one laced with a regality Amethyst had never heard in her line. It is, she said softly. At her answer, a dragon gently opened the spire door. She looked up at the forgotten princess with gentle, understanding eyes. A crown was planted firmly against her horns like it belonged there, its color shining beautifully with the dragon's ruby scales. It took only one sentence for Amethyst to understand everything, and for her mind to be filled with a new life. You will be forgotten no longer. Wow, I absolutely had a blast coming up with the ideas for this story, and I hope it didn't disappoint. This dragon at the end is Ruby, of course, and upon her arrival as queen, she learned about the existence of this forgotten relative and could save her. In my mind, Ibex really did become the royal librarian, and finally saw some appreciation when Ruby took the throne. I truly believe the two of them would reunite after this, and Ibex would remember Amethyst. I mean, imagine her reaction at never seeing her again for so long. And what was your favorite part of this tale? Let me know down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.